Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. Welcome to chapter 20, which is called Back at School. It's September and the start of the new school year. As I drop Ben off at the bus stop, I'm not convinced he's ready to return to school yet. His mood is terrible, his eating has gone haywire, and he's avoiding his friends like the plague. School is probably the last place he should be at the moment. But he insists on going, so with a heavy heart, I drive him to the bus. Ben is still refusing to let me talk about food or participate with his eating in any way apart from cooking the evening meal. If I do, he explodes. So it's impossible to ensure he's getting sufficient calories. As a result, he's continuing to lose weight. Meanwhile, Cams still hope that by managing his own food intake, Ben will gradually learn to make the right choices. One day he will realise that, yes, he needs to eat more to put on weight and will adjust his intake accordingly. Week after week, scales session after scales session will prove to him that the wrong decisions add up to weight loss, just as we've been doing all summer long. But so far, he's failed to cotton on. I wonder how much more weight he will lose before the penny finally drops. What if it never drops? Ben is getting more irrational by the day. I can't for the life of me see how the irrational anorexic mind can turn a corner of its own accord. And what if Ben feels driven to take his own life? Already he's made several suicide threats. More than anything, I yearn to get Ben back onto a structured eating plan with me at the helm, supported by Cams. It's over 3 months since he ditched Eating Plan 6, and he's been slowly losing weight ever since. I worry that by continuing to allow Ben to take control of his eating, we're inadvertently working with the illness. At every CAM session, he promises to eat more and exercise less. But when push comes to shove, he can't do it. He's too scared of getting fat. Result, more weight loss. Meanwhile, Cams still hope this will prove to him that his choices aren't always the right ones. One day the penny will drop. Very soon, we hope. I want to see results, proper, lasting, genuine, visible results. I just want my son back. I've got to the stage where I'm panicking and terrified of where this is going. And if I hear Paul saying, sometimes you have to let people reach rock bottom before they make the decision to change, again, I'll scream. Ben has lost all his joy and zest for life. I can't remember the last time he smiled or laughed genuinely. He skulks around the house looking as if the world's about to end. He's banned me from preparing any of his meals except the evening main course. He refuses point blank to eat anything else that I prepare. I'm not convinced he's learning anything from this rigid and over-restrictive eating regime of his. Also, he doesn't entirely trust me to be honest with what goes into the evening meal. Often I'll find him hovering around me like a mosquito, checking that I'm measuring the ingredients accurately and not adding anything I shouldn't. I am still Big Bad Mum, the perpetrator of the hated eating plan, the original eating plan that didn't work. And whenever I voice my concerns, I'm told that he just needs space. As a result, I don't know what my role is. All I am is the person who cooks the evening meal and stands by while he continues to lose weight. Only a few months ago, we had days when we'd see glimpses of the old Ben, and we'd be given a break from the eating disorder for a day or two. But now he's on a downer virtually every day, all day. And it's got nothing to do with me going on at him or not giving him enough space, because I've made a point of keeping quiet, rarely mentioning food or weight, despite my instincts screaming out for me to take action. Ben seems to have entered a new, dark and dangerous mood cycle. I'm on a constant knife edge. Over the past few weeks, we've seen some disturbing behaviours. You're wasting your energy, Paul says. Let him destroy himself. Let him end up in the unit on the end of a feeding tube. Not if I have anything to do with it, I think. But I feel so helpless I could strangle someone. I arrange an urgent meeting with Sarah and put together some bulleted notes to send her in advance. But today I'm abruptly informed by the CAMS receptionist that parents are no longer permitted to send emails to clinicians. It's a case of leaving telephone messages and hoping they'll get passed on, or nothing. Sorry, she says, but this is what the management has agreed. Oh great, I think to myself, let's make things even more difficult for parents. Meanwhile, the needle continues to get stuck in the groove. How long do we have to wait before CAMS insist Ben puts on weight? I ask Paul over and over again. And when they do, how on earth do we get Ben to cooperate? Already Ben is hacked off with treatment. The other week, Paul had to virtually carry him to CAMS. What if he refuses treatment altogether? We can't force him to go. So we need to keep him sweet if we want to keep him on our side. I can't help feeling this is playing into the hands of the demon, but to be honest, I can't see another way. I'm also worried sick about the compulsive exercising. He's still doing all the usual sit-ups and weights. He insists on going for a gruelling run at least once a week and on doing PE at school. Sometimes the only reason he goes into school is so he doesn't miss PE. How long will he be allowed to exercise? When does it become dangerous? What if he refuses to stop? And what if he just can't stop? There's a new problem that's been thrown into the mix: insomnia. Sometimes he doesn't sleep at all. His mind whirs round and round all night long, calculating calories and exercises and working out how he's going to structure them into the following day. These thoughts dominate his thinking. One way he tries to keep the avalanche of thoughts at bay is to study at an almost manic pace. He hides in the school library whenever he gets a free moment, and he's avoiding contact with his peers. He's actively cutting back on food again and throwing food away, and meanwhile his mood continues to plummet. He seems to have lost the will to recover. Indeed, he's in denial about the need to recover. Ben manipulates me with threats of leaving home or killing himself if I so much as hint at a return to the eating plan. Meanwhile, he continues with his own version, the plan that's making him lose weight week after week, until, fingers crossed, he turns a corner. But I still can't see any sign of him turning a corner. I'm in a complete state of panic and can't function properly. I'm his parent, yet under my care he risks deteriorating even further, as I simply can't get him to cooperate. I feel demoralised, exhausted, and very, very frightened. Day after day I am petrified that I will lose my son to suicide. It's a constant ice-cold, heart-thudding, leaden-weight fear that drives everything I think, do and say. I feel as if I need to keep a constant eye on him in case he does something dangerous, either intentionally or unintentionally. When he goes out running, I'm terrified that someone will make fun of him and trigger a suicidal reaction. At least twice some idiots shouted, "Run, fat boy, run," as Ben's dragged his skeletal frame around the streets. Of course, to Ben, their jibes prove that he is indeed fat. I could throttle them. I hoover up anything potentially harmful, knives, scissors and medication. I start to worry about other potentially dangerous items around the home.
I've already locked the upstairs windows and hidden the keys, and I'm terrified that if he doesn't take his own life, then he'll leave home and disappear into the ether, or he'll lose his life as a result of starvation or heart failure. Already he's back to the same weight he was in January, the month when his pulse rate plummeted to 29, and it's now September, 8 months on. I'm constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid setting off the demon. Usually I fail. Like the day Ben discovers he's exceeded his daily calorie intake by 300. It's my fault. I've miscalculated the calories in the evening meal. To cut a long and very traumatic story short, Ben goes ballistic, screaming that he can't live in our house a moment longer, and flies upstairs to pack his bags. The only reason he didn't leave was because Paul threatened to call the police, I tell Sue the next day. Ben won't talk to me any longer, he just screams. It's as if he hates me. How am I expected to support him through this illness if he refuses to speak to me? But you know what affects me most about that night? It's while Paul is attempting to console Ben in the living room, I go up to Ben's bedroom, where his packed rucksack is propped up on the bed. I sit down beside it, unzip it, and look inside. Neatly folded pyjamas and underpants, his iPod, his wallet, a change of clothes. Not much different, really, from the way he'd pack for a family holiday. Then I see the penguin, Ben's battered, much-loved penguin. Since my sister produced Fatty the penguin on Ben's first birthday, they've been inseparable. Fatty always comes on holiday. He was always the last item to be packed into Ben's rucksack, poking out of the top, just like today. We used to joke that Fatty would disappear on exciting adventures while we went out for the day. We'd go to the beach and Fatty would go in search of fish. So naturally, if Ben was leaving home, then Fatty would go with him. Fatty. All of a sudden, I have an appalling vision of Ben, Fatty, and the neatly packed rucksack huddled under a railway bridge somewhere in our big city, lost and oh so very vulnerable. Crazily, the main thing that sets me off sobbing as if I can't stop is the vision of Ben losing Fatty as someone steals the rucksack or it's left under the bridge to rot while Ben fades away. A kaleidoscope of horrific images rushes through my mind, followed by a grotesque contrast. A content, happy Ben, aged 3, sitting up in bed in his cosy Thomas the Tank pyjamas, hugging Fatty and beaming with delight as I read him a bedtime story. I think the human mind must do some curious adapting. I'm aware that Ben could take his own life. I'm aware that the illness could kill him in some other way. I find myself moving onto a completely new and frightening emotional plane. A living hell that is impossible to explain unless you've been through it. The prospect of death, or the fact that your child may never recover, becomes almost normal. Yet at the same time you are permanently filled with an ice-cold, heart-thudding fear. It's vital that I get all of this across to Sarah at our meeting, every single bit, which is why I've put together a carefully thought-out, bulleted agenda. How long do we have? I ask when I eventually see her. I'm relieved when she says we've got a full hour. I plough through my agenda, item by item, right through to the bitter end. We discuss intervention plans and safety nets, should Ben lose any more weight. We talk about ways to get him to cooperate, especially on school days when he's driven to eat less because he's sitting around doing nothing. I want to know how long we can let him make his own choices before introducing a strict weight gain regime. I suggest that the time for asking, "What does Ben want?" is over. But I can't do this alone. I will need Cam's full support. I explain that I feel powerless. He's unable to keep his promises to eat more and exercise less. All I can do is sit back and watch while he presses the self-destruct button. More than anything else, I want to know how she and I can work together to turn things around, especially with Ben refusing to cooperate with me. He's more rigidly trapped in his eating rules, calories and precision weighing of foods than ever. How can we get him to break free? I tell Sarah that Ben can't sleep on school days and is exhausted, yet he is forcing himself to persevere, working like a Trojan until he's completely worn out. Every morning and every evening is a nightmare. It's simply not sustainable. We can't go on like this. For the first time, I feel as if I'm talking to Sarah from the heart, and thank God she's listening. As she passes the box of tissues to me, I feel as if it's one human being talking to another human, not a disinterested professional talking with a neurotic parent. In 60 minutes, we cover a heck of a lot of ground. I genuinely feel we've made progress. I really do. It's Sarah and me against the eating disorder. But how much more weight does Ben have to lose before he gets on our side too? That's the end of chapter 20. If you go to the end of this video, you'll find a link to chapter 21, which is called Another Phone Call. Thank you for listening. It would also be really good if you could like this video, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button below. Oh, and don't forget to visit my blog. You'll find the link below. You'll also find a link to my website where you can download PDFs of my blog for free.